You said football. I thought you were about to say my name again. I was
Oh my
like,
God. All right, that's what I
World
get.
Cup Digest
I know.
episode 30.
Yep.
Episode
Episode 30,
took
man.
us a while to get there, but we hit the big 3-0.
Exactly. We're back. We're back. It's been a while. It's been a while. How you feeling, bro?
Doing all right. I'm doing all right. Doing better this week. How you feeling?
Yeah, same here, man. Been going through a rut, just handling some business and, just want to get things going again because I have a habit, right? I have this very bad habit that I could be doing something very, very, I'll be on a good, I'm doing good. I'm on the journey. I'm doing something that I love, passionate for years, and then I just stop. I just prioritize something else, and I just completely stop.
Just ghost. Yeah.
Just stop. That's I do that. I do that. There's been some things that I do that with. Like I used to play cricket, and I just stopped. And it's been 6+ years. I just stopped. You see, and it's hard to get back into it. So I don't want that to happen with this beautiful series that we're doing, where we're talking international football. We're still talking the World Cup, it's World Cup digest, still, digesting that World Cup, for lack of better words. But the thing is, most people seemingly have moved on from the World Cup.
Yeah. And to some extent, we can't blame them. It's been now 2 months as of yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, since the World Cup ended. The World Cup ended a little time ago. We could have had 2 more World Cups since
Yep.
that time.
I
And
know.
but you and I, we're nerds. We love this stuff. So like,
Exactly.
we got even if it takes us a while to finish our material, we make sure we get there.
Exactly. So in today's episode, we're basically going to talk international football managers, the changes in when we're going to stick to the World Cup teams. We're going to stick to the 32 teams that participated at the recently completed World Cup, and we're going to go group by group from groups A all the way to group H, and we're going to see which teams still have the same managers, which teams made managerial changes, or which teams that are, left the managerial spots are vacant and are yet to be filled. So, how excited are you to do this?
I'm looking forward to it. I think both of us might be a little bit rusty, but it's an interesting topic to go into because it's not just a World Cup exclusive topic. It also gives nod to the fact that the ashes have settled. We moved on. Some pieces on the board have moved around a bit. Some managers are gone. Some have stayed. So we get to really look at and assess of like not just like the World Cup, but where things are right now in international football. In February.
It's very important because even though the World Cup just finished, as soon as you blink, we have international football coming back, and we have World Cup qualifiers coming back very, very soon. South American World Cup qualifiers start very, very early, and then some confederations are going to get into their preliminary rounds, later on this year and next year. So we can't delay. We have to get into it. So let's start with Group A, and as you guys should remember, Group A consisted of Ecuador, Qatar, Senegal, and the Netherlands. And we're gonna start with Ecuador, and I already have the Ecuadorian manager here, and Gustavo Alfaro. The post is now vacant. He took charge from 2020 until 2022. Took Ecuador back to the World Cup for the first time in a while, and he left his post. I was a bit surprised that he no longer is the manager of Ecuador because I felt like he's done a really really good job with these this very very young bunch of players, and something that previous managers had failed to do was to take Ecuador back. Ecuador was one of the surprise packages of the World Cup qualifiers, and even at the World Cup, despite failing in some way because it's failing to get out the group. So he took charge for 35 matches, and he actually January 2023. I know I said 2022, but you know basically the end of 2022, early 2023. What are your thoughts on this change though?
with Alfaro now gone.
Yeah.
I thought he did a great job. I mean, during a qualifying season where all the South American teams whose name was not Argentina or Brazil were struggling in their own right, Ecuador stood out. And they're not a team with very many superstars on it, but they were a young side in the World Cup. And I thought that during the qualifiers, the fact that they were able to grind out not very flashy results, but they were able to get results where they needed to, including against the likes of Brazil and Argentina. It allowed them to get back to the World Cup for the first time since 2014. And given what Alfaro had to work with, I think it was a successful World Cup for Ecuador, even though they'll be disappointed they didn't come out of the group phase. They performed well. They gave the Netherlands a very tough match. I remember in their group, came undone against Senegal. But he's now gone. And I don't know if he will go on to bigger and better things, but I had heard that Ecuador were in talks with Ricardo Gareca to take
the Peruvian manager, right?
Yep.
He's no longer the manager of Peru.
I believe that he's in talks to possibly leave, but in the last couple of weeks, based on the research that I looked at, Gareca is one of the prime candidates for the replacement to join Ecuador.
Okay, and just so you know, guys, the in the future episode will be, checking the managers of other teams that did not make the cut for the World Cup, so that we could get up to date with that, because we want to get up to speed. We don't want to be guessing. We want to know what's going on, because with international football, things tend to slip through the cracks. Things come out. You're not even aware that it happened, because a lot of these managerial changes, I'm pretty sure that some of you guys are like, "What? That happened? I didn't even realize it happened." But for 35 matches, 12 wins and 14 draws, only 9 losses. That's pretty good, man.
Yeah,
that is pretty good. And attacking wise, 44 goals, only 33 conceded. That's pretty good. That's a great job I think he did in his spell in charge of Ecuador.
Yeah, and from what I was able to find, Gareca did leave Peru. Yeah, I don't think it's been confirmed. Yeah, I don't think it's confirmed that he's Ecuador's new manager yet, but they're going through the process basically.
All right. So I love that, man. So even though the managerial post right now is vacant for Ecuador, Football Pharaoh coming in clutch with some news of a prospective manager, and I really, really appreciate that, and I adore that, because I didn't really caught wind of that news as yet. So pretty good. So let's see who's gonna end up being the manager of this very talented Ecuadorian team, who for sure I think I don't want to. I'm not gonna put my money on Ecuador just yet. Let's see when I make my predictions, but from what we saw at the 2022 World Cup, this team is destined to qualify for back-to-back World Cups, though.
Oh yeah, especially with the expansion, of course.
Exactly, and maybe a possibility that are they included in one of the as one of the bids for the 2030 World Cup?
I don't believe so. I think that's the South American countries. That's Uruguay, Argentina, I think Chile and Paraguay. Those are the 4 that are like all joint bidding.
But then again, if those four go in, then it would make the qualifiers a pretty tough.
Yeah,
if you really think about it. So, but for 2026, we know they're good. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move on to the next team, and this one is very, very interesting. And this is Qatar. And Felix Bas Sanchez is no longer the manager of Qatar, and he took charge from 2017 to 2022, where the World Cup, campaign was a complete failure, an embarrassment in my opinion. And then he was succeeded. This is a strange one, because he was succeeded by Bruno Pinheiro, and then Bruno Pinheiro actually left the post. I don't know what happened there. And then Carlos Queiroz is now in charge of Qatar. This is crazy.
Carlos is always somewhere, isn't he?
This is crazy, man. He loves the Middle East. That's the thing. I realize that he loves, the Middle East these days. He's 69 years old. So I don't know if that's the right appointment in terms of going forward and like his style of play as well. He's a bit pragmatic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if that suits Qatar's whole style that they we've came to know of over the last 5 years or so under Felix Sanchez. But Carlos Queiroz, he's now the man in charge, man. And you know a lot about Carlos Queiroz.
Yeah, I've mixed feelings on the man himself. Like, he guided Egypt as well to the most recent AFCON final, came very close to clinching a spot in the World Cup. 3 stints in charge of Iran, 2014, 2018, and 2022. All 3 World Cups, the most recent ones.
You mean 2 stints, right? 2 stints.
No. 3.
Yeah.
He was manager for 2014, 2018, and then 2022.
2011 to 2019, but then I guess he left in between and went to Colombia. Yeah.
Yeah, he did have he was briefly in charge of Colombia back.
Yeah, I remember that. I definitely remember that.
Yeah, so he was Portugal manager in 2010 World Cup. Even long resume, even going back to 2002. I think he was the manager of South Africa. What do I think of this appointment?
Yeah. Right here. South Africa, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. So he does have a long resume, man. Early 90s, in charge of Portugal as well for a good bit of matches. So he's been around a while.
I think for this appointment, Carlos is the kind of guy who he might help Qatar out as far as getting results where they otherwise wouldn't against better opposition, but he's not a tournament manager. His career's been marked by lack of success in tournament competitions. And, his replacement, Felix Sanchez Bas, he had to go because after the high of winning the last Asian Cup, which credit, he'll always go down as an Asian Cup winning manager, Qatar regressed. They got worse as the build-up to the World Cup came, which was a little bit surprising. And then when the World Cup came, they were just ran off the pitch, basically, scoring just 1 goal in 3 matches, and they lost all games. So Felix Sanchez Bas, his welcome had run out. I think Qatar could have done better. Qatar has the money and the resources to get somebody that's not known for just hopping around the globe and just taking all these stints.
What this looks like? You know what this looks like to me? A fix. This looks like a fixer. Someone who knows the ropes, someone who has worked with young players for a very long time in his career. Someone who has been with Man United for a while as well, seen a lot of success. He knows, what I'm saying. So with Qatar in the situation that they're in right now, instead of hiring new blood, someone who like Bruno Pinera, I don't know the guy. You see what I'm saying? So to bring in a Carlos Queiroz, you have a man who knows. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So going into next World Cup qualifying and Asian Cup coming around, there's someone who's going to be pragmatic and who's going to make some sensible moves at least. So they might not be pretty, but they're going to be effective because look at what he did, with Iran. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because remember, Iran was in a whole lot of problems before he came back.
Sure.
And when he came back, what happened? They qualified for the World Cup, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's not the greatest appointment, but it's a sensible appointment.
It's safe. It's like
yeah, exactly. It's a safe. That's a better word, safe. So we move on and we move to Senegal, where we have Aliou Cisse, who's been in charge since 2015, and he's still in charge, and rightly so, because the man's done a great job, man.
Truly, Senegal is, I think, maybe the best team in Africa. Maybe you could make a case for Morocco at the moment, but it's well earned. It's deserved. He's the only manager in this group who, from Group A, that has remained on after the World Cup. AFCON winners, runners-up last time in 2019, broke through, got the first ever trophy for Senegal last year. got him out of the group stages this time. They almost did in 2018. Honestly, one of the most successful African managers of all time already, and he's a very young man. I could see him staying there for quite a while more yet. And I don't want to spend too long on Aliou Cisse. I just think you have to give him a lot of respect, a lot of respect. An African manager.
Indeed. Look, he's a rare breed, man. He's a rare breed. Just look at the man. He's a rare breed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because when you think Africa, how long does an African manager stay in charge? You see what I'm saying? That's a hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? That's like a poison chalice. To be in charge of an African team, you're gone very, very fast. You mess up, you're gone. But he's enjoyed a lot of success with this very talented Senegalese team, man. And if we scroll down, you could see he has not had a lot of experience. He's been manager of the Senegal team and assistant manager, caretaker manager, and not a lot of experience before he took charge of the national team. And he's done great. 84 matches.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And he's in charge until 2024. And it says there he might have a contract extension too, And he's only had 12 losses, bro. 12 losses.
8 years.
Yeah, 140 goals, 59 conceded. That's a great record. 54 wins. That's a great record, man. So, give it up to Aliou Cisse. And Senegal would want to keep him in charge to defend their AFCON title and to take them back to the 2026 World Cup because, Africa is more spots, but it's still a lot of teams vying for those spots.
And I think also he gets a lot of credit for the way that Senegal adjusted when they were missing Sadio Mane this last World Cup. Because there were moments in their group stage matches where they were really missing his presence up front. But, his familiarity with this team and his belief in his players. I mean, you had other guys that rose to the occasion, and they got out of the group stages. And he'll be there. He's going to be there for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if they go on yet another deep run in AFCON next year. So,
yeah, exactly. Same bunch of players will be there. We're not going to see a lot of retirements for the Senegal team. They're pretty young with a few experienced heads there, and Aliou Cisse will definitely be in charge for the foreseeable future. And what it seems is they have a very, very organized and their football federation isn't as corrupt as most of the other football federations in Africa. I think they deserve some credit for that, though.
Sure.
Yeah. Definitely. So last but not least, in Group A is the Netherlands, and we have Louis van Gaal, and he was actually in his third stint as manager, and he's now moved on. He's basically retired, right? And Ronald Koeman back for his second stint, after he left the Netherlands post and went to a failed tenure at Barcelona, where it was his dream job. So he comes full circle back as the Netherlands manager. I think they were on a very good trajectory with Ronald Koeman, however. So, I don't think that's a bad appointment, though. But it's still like the thing with the Netherlands. It's like a merry-go-round. It's like the same set of guys you see running the show over there. You see what I mean? Like you see Danny Blind, you see, Ronald Koeman, you see Van Gaal, and some of the previous managers, they just keep going for one stint, they come back, you know what I mean? So what are your thoughts on the whole Van Gaal? Of course, Van Gaal, he's up there in age and he's dealing with some medical issues as well. So he couldn't stay on, but, do you think they could have went another way, like use the opportunity to move on from Ronald Koeman and his brother? Because I think his brother Erwin is going to be there with him too, So,
yeah,
or do you think that was the right decision to bring Koeman back?
I think just like the Qatar situation with Queiroz, this was safe for the Netherlands because they went back to what works. In his prior stint, Ronald Koeman, the Netherlands were resurgent. Remember, in the aftermath of missing the last World Cup, they had a very dominant Nations League performance in the first Nations League back in 2019. barnstormed the qualification for Euro 2020. They looked really good, and then all of a sudden, that opening for Barca came, and he took it, and then we know that Holland got stuck with Frank de Boer, and things didn't work out that way for them. I always like the joke, I've said this before on my channel, there's an alternate universe out there somewhere where the Netherlands win Euro 2020 with Ronald Koeman. At the very least, I think they go farther than they actually did. Yeah, I mean, I would anticipate at least a moderately successful second stint. I think that the project that the Netherlands were undergoing, missing the last World Cup that was started back under him, I think he'll come in right away and try to continue on from that. As far as Louis van Gaal, I tip your hat off to him. I mean, he took the Netherlands to a second World Cup, and him being somewhat of a legend in his own right. I think, given the circumstances that Van Gaal came in, he took the Netherlands as far as they most likely could have gone. They pushed Argentina to penalties. So it is a little bit boring to see the back and forth, between rehashing of the same managers. But I mean, you stick to what works. You can hardly blame them for that.
Yeah, well said, well said. So this is Ronald Koeman's record: 20 matches, 11 wins, 5 draws, 4 losses. So they were, on course, because if you look here, a lot of competitive games, what I'm saying, Nations League, a lot of qualifiers. And, Koeman, as you said, he took charge of the Netherlands resurgence after missing the 2018 World Cup. And when the Barcelona job came, he did what he had to do. He had to run and take it, but it didn't work out too well at Barcelona. But he's back, and that's one thing with national managerial duties is you could come back. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if the Spanish Federation will take back Julian Lopetegui, but Ronald Koeman, I think he left on good terms.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's going to be smooth as far as the adjustments. And with the Netherlands hosting the final phases of the Nations League this summer, he could come right back into it the first year of his second stint and get him a trophy, which would be incredibly the first trophy since the '88 Euros, I think, if they were to do that.
They're long overdue, man. Long overdue, a trophy.
Way overdue. Yep. Want to move on?
Definitely, man. We took a little long on Group A. It makes me feel like we might not even be able to finish this whole thing today. But we're gonna run. We're gonna run through it. We're just warming up. Let's make a move. Group B consists of USA, Wales, England, and Iran. And we don't really have a lot of analysis because only 2 managerial changes. So we're gonna go Greg Berhalter. He's gone.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know he was gone until I was looking up these things. Because I wasn't really paying attention to a lot of international, news. But Greg Berhalter's gone, and the interim managers is Anthony Hudson, and the USA are currently looking for, a new manager. What are your thoughts? Do you think? First of all, I think Greg Berhalter had a very successful stint. As much as we might want to criticize him and say this about him and say that about him, he wasn't the most popular guy amongst the fans. But I have to say, Greg Berhalter could hold his head up high, and he might even get a second stint sometime in the future as a U.S. manager because, he won the Nations League. He won the Gold Cup. He took the team back to the World Cup that missed the World Cup in 2018. So that's pretty successful to me. He did some strange things. He made some strange decisions, a lot of controversial ones as well. And he did leave in a controversial manner with the whole Giovanni Reina thing.
Oh yeah.
But all in all, I think it was a very good stint.
Well, look, it takes a true hater to look at the last 3-4 years and say that it was a failure. When you win 2 continental titles within a span of a couple months, qualifying for the World Cup, getting out of the group stages against a lot of doubts, myself included. It was a successful stint. I agree it could have been better. I think a lot of his tactical knowledge wherewithal was lacking at times, really odd lineup selections and substitutions. I have my own criticisms regarding some of the way that we set up in the World Cup. But we got there in the end. The goal was to get out of the group. We would have liked to have gone one step further than we did in 2014 and 2010. But second round is becoming something of a mainstay for USA whenever we make it to the World Cup, which is good. As far as the vacancy, wow, it's a hot race, and there's so many names out there that have been thrown around. The U.S. even appealed to Zinedine Zidane, who politely declined. Jose Mourinho is a name that's been floated around. A couple of MLS guys too, like Peter Vermes, the Kansas City coach, or Philadelphia Union rather, Oscar Pereja. So my concern as far as like the whole coaching situation in the U.S. is I'm worried that we could be looking at a repeat of the last World Cup cycle where we take like the better part of half a year up to a year before ultimately choosing. I think that would be a big mistake now that we're now entering the 2026 cycle of which we'll be hosting. Also because we have a Gold Cup this year, you want to kind of a major tournament coming up. You kind of want to have some kind of idea or at least settle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jesse
the sooner the better. But Jesse Marsch would be the perfect man for that job because he's American. In my opinion, he's American, right? He's popular amongst the football world, the fans as well, and he plays very attractive style of football. You see what I mean? Not as pragmatic as you might need to be, but you know what I'm saying. Jesse Marsch, he is a better manager in my opinion than Greg Berhalter. You see what I'm saying? I think he will make better decisions, and you'll be like you'll more back the decisions made by Jesse Marsch. It's just unfortunate what happened at Leeds United, but still, I think that gives him perfect opportunity to become the U.S. manager. But I think there's a stumbling block. I was reading something. I didn't go through the whole article, but I saw something that said that there's something that could prevent him from being the manager of the USA, right now. Are you aware of that?
I don't remember hearing of that.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that with this recent sack from Leeds, it couldn't have come at a better time if indeed he wants to be the next U.S. manager. And exactly. he's going to be one of the leading contenders for it. I actually think it's either going to be him or it's going to be an MLS guy. That's what I think. I don't think it's going to be a foreign manager. I think the next manager is going to be American.
I think it should be given to Jesse Marsch and, use the Gold Cup and just give him some time. Seeing that the USA does not need to qualify, just give him some time to work with these bunch of players and get the squad that he wants to take at the World Cup, because it's important. Now it's 2023. The World Cup is in 3 years. So you give the Jesse Marsch a job now. Just forget about any results leading up to the World Cup. You see what I'm saying? Let him do what he has to do. Or whoever gets the job, whether it's Jesse Marsch or someone else, right? Give them the time to work on this project and get the squad right. You see what I'm saying? Because you're going to be hosting the World Cup and you don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to pull a Qatar.
Regardless of who we choose, it has to be not only this year, but preferably not wait till the end of this year now that we're in this cycle and we're hosting it in 2026. One of the big criticisms that a lot of U.S. fans had was the fact that we took a year last time after missing Russia to settle that. And I don't want history to repeat because it'll show that we didn't learn anything. That U.S. soccer did not learn anything.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to say about Marsch before we move on is I'm a bit skeptic. I'm a bit Marsch skeptic because from what I've seen with RB Salzburg when he was manager of them and when I saw him at his time at Leeds.
What about Leipzig? Leipzig too.
Oh, sorry. Leipzig and Leipzig as well.
Yeah.
Like his teams cannot defend to save their lives
Because he's very attacking. You see
and
what
that,
I'm saying?
but that comes at a price, right?
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, and another thing too with Jesse Marsch, he has to work on his temperament. He's very like he crumbles very easy. He gets rattled very easily. So when something doesn't go his way in the game, it's like he just loses his shit.
Yeah.
And he starts with his antics, and you could just see it. You could just see it, man. You gotta have a poker face, right? You gotta have a poker face, okay? So if you make a move, you pull a couple strings, when it pays off, you crack a smile because all along you had it under control. But Jesse March's facial expression just gives it away, man. And then as a player, you're looking over at your manager looking weak. You see what I'm saying? It rubs off on a team, and that's why you see his team struggling with Leipzig at the top level and with Leeds United. You see what I'm saying this season?
Yeah, well, U.S. soccer has less time than it thinks, I feel, to figure it out and get it right.
So we move on to Wales. Well, Robert Page, who took charge of the team in 2020 after the whole legal issues with Ryan Giggs, he's done a great job. He was able to take Wales back to the World Cup for the first time since 1958, and that's no easy feat at all, so give it up to Robert Page. Not much to really add on him, but to just said he's done a great job with a very talented bunch of players, including the likes of Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey, and a few of the young players like Brennan Johnson, and guys like Harry Wilson and co coming through. So give it up to Robert Page, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's always going to be the guy who, for the first time in a couple of generations, brought Wales back to a World Cup since the 50s. So very disappointing performance from Wales. I thought, and you thought as well, they were going to put in a significantly better accounting of themselves in this tournament. They just flatlined. The only goal they scored came through that penalty that we gave away, that Gareth Bale converted. They got put to the sword by England comfortably. They lost to Iran after that match for them just completely fell apart, and they lost their cool. Wales were quietly one of the worst performing teams at this last tournament. And like you said, apparently he's still in charge. Has he earned that to stay in charge? I would say only just. Maybe I can understand why they would not make a change just yet.
Well, look there. It said expected to be in charge until the next World Cup. So,
well, but you know how contracts are. There's always like.
But the thing is, who else though? Why not? You see what I'm saying? Like, why not?
Sure.
You see what I mean? Like, this is Wales we're talking about. This is not England. This is Wales, and they could quietly qualify for the next World Cup as well. You see what I mean?
They could, and even despite Gareth Bale's retirement, they're still a team all around that I think has enough quality to at least qualify for another Euros.
Yep.
So we can see how they do there. We might have to see them in one more tournament to really assess where they are now. So yeah, it makes sense why Rob Page would stay on.
So this one is a big one, and this is England, of course. Gareth Southgate, he's been in charge since 2016, and he's still in charge. Wow. So that tells you that he's done a great job, despite not really winning anything. From my recollection, I'm looking through the memory bank right now, and I'm looking through the memory bank, and my receipt says 0 balance.
Wow.
What? Nothing won, but the results have been pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Like making the finals of the Euros, qualifying for 2 World Cups, doing reasonably okay. But still, I think this England team heavily underachieved, though. See what I'm saying?
Looking at their performance in the World Cup, I give them a pass because they came up against France, and France is going to do France things.
They should have won. They should have won the game, though.
They should. Yeah, very, very convincing second half performance. Kane skying his penalty to the moon. They grew into that match after France took the lead, and they looked for long stretches of it like they were going to go on to win it. I gotta be honest, I still feel the winner of that game was always going to reach the final at the least. And
do you know with some help from NASA, FIFA has finally retrieved that ball though.
Oh, one small step for a man, one giant leap for Harry Kane. I think Southgate, he gets a lot of hate. I think some of it's deserved. But I mean, it may not be saying much, but he's one of the most successful England managers of all time. So I think he's more than deserved to stay on. And the thing with Southgate that is actually just effective is he's very much a tournament manager. It may not always look very brilliant when England's on the pitch, but it's devastatingly effective. And, it's getting results. And purely the only reason they didn't go further than the quarters is because of the bracket. I think that when looking at the 8 quarterfinalists we had in this World Cup this time, I think England gets past anyone other than France or Argentina. Like, I think they beat Morocco, that they beat Portugal, they beat the Netherlands. I think they even beat Brazil if they had met.
They should have won the Euros as well when you really think about it.
They should have, yeah.
If better decision making, maybe in terms of who took the penalties. You see what I'm saying? And it seems like penalties always, it's like the undoing of the England national team. You know what I'm saying? You go through history and countless times. Like the first World Cup I saw was 98 and it was a penalty shootout, right? So and that was what, 1990. They got 90. It was 1990, right? And they didn't make 94. So that was 1990.
Yeah. They made the semis in 1990 and they didn't qualify.
And they succumbed to penalties in 1990. And that was penalties again in 98, and there was probably a few more times, with the penalty thing, and then the World Cup, the whole World Cup situation with the penalties, 2018 World Cup, it seems like they had got over that whole penalty problem, but then it came back to haunt them again at the Euro final, and then again at the 2022 World Cup with Harry Kane of all people missing that penalty. So I think if I'm Southgate, I'll be practicing penalties because the guys are good in other aspects of the field. They're good. I will have training sessions. I know it sounds weird, but every training sessions would be just penalties. Let's just all take penalties, different type of penalties, and focus less. You'll do other things, but you're going to have long penalty taking sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's genius. So, guys, Southgate's still in charge for the foreseeable future. Iran, Carlos Queiroz, we touched on him already, and we're not going to stay super long on Iran, but, we touched on the fact that Carlos Queiroz came in and actually saved Iran from their whole, catastrophic early World Cup campaign, where it looked like they were going to get knocked out and not make the final rounds. But he came in, consolidated, and, took them to the World Cup. Put out a pretty decent showing. But all in all, just Iran just couldn't finish their dinner. They just couldn't. They had opportunities and just didn't, to handle business. So the job is vacant right now.
Mm-hmm.
Who you think I think Iran might actually end up going with some weird name that you're like, whoa, who's this person? You see what I'm saying?
Pretty much. Is Paulo Bento available?
Yes, I think I ran across something with Paulo Bento, I think I can't remember. I ran across something with Paulo Bento, but I think he left South Korea, so he's available.
Mm-hmm.
He's available.
Yeah, a lot of the time when we see it in confederations, like outside of UEFA, and also I guess in UEFA, we see like managers moving around in between places and such. I'm just trying to think of names that would go to Iran. That's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised if, at least in the interim, that they pick some local domestic coach.
Yeah.
The next year or two or so. Because of that, I can't really comment on any like future like managerial prospects for them. But as far as Queiroz goes, Iran they came close to coming out of the group. They needed a draw against us in that last day. They just couldn't quite get there. And considering the whole political instability in their country, I think you give them a pass just because you weigh that in as well. Yeah. Kind of unfortunate that Queiroz couldn't cap it off with the Cinderella. Third time's the charm, getting out of the group stages. But yeah,
I think I ran across something. Something's coming back that the manager of the club Tractor. I think that the club Tractor Shaji. I think he was up. I think I saw something mention of that guy.
Okay.
You know, Tractor FC.
Okay.
And you know, I'm not 100% sure, but I did run. Well, this guy was just from Paco Jimenez guy. You know, a Spaniard. I might be wrong, but you know, they might go for someone who's already in the local league that's doing well. You see what I'm saying? So say, okay, we have someone here who knows the players. Here's a you know, an appointment for the national manager. Go ahead, see what you could do. You see what I'm saying? But as you mentioned, with the political instability over there right now, the future is like kind of, you know, cloudy right now. You know, shrouded in terms of Iran.
Sure. Okay.
You know what I mean? So we'll get back to that. That's vacant right now, and we're doing okay. 42 minutes, and you know, what do you think? We might have to split this half, or
yeah, we might have to do it half, but that's okay. I mean, it gives us more content for the channel, and I think
exactly. You know, so guys, we're gonna do Group C and Group D, and we'll come back for episode 31 for the latter half because it's more discussion than I anticipated. You know what I mean? Where we start kicking it, everything start coming back. You know, it gives us more time to do some research again for the vacant spots, and we might get more news. Next time we come back, we might have more news for you on some of the vacancies as well. So we move on to Group C, where we have a few appointments and you know, some exciting ones. Argentina, Poland, Mexico, Saudi Arabia. So Argentina, Lionel Scaloni, the man, 2018 president, the man on top of the world. You know, round of applause for Scaloni again. You know what I'm saying? The man's a World Cup winner, man.
And I think he's earned to stay on just a little bit. You know, just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit more. Yeah. Maybe one more World Cup.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, man, the man won Argentina's first Copa America in ages. Yep. And he won that what's that? Finalissimo trophy. And then he capped it off with the World Cup. And that's after that long unbeaten run as well that Argentina was on, right? You know, so, you know, Lionel Scaloni and his team with Messi, you know, Enzo Fernandez, Julian Alvarez, and co. These guys have done a really good job over the last 5 years or so since, you know, 4 years, since Lionel Scaloni took over from Jorge Sampaoli after that 2018 World Cup debacle. And he won the World Cup. He's a World Cup winner. We don't need to elaborate on this. World Cup winner says it all, and they're going to go into World Cup qualifiers pretty soon, and Argentina definitely one of the favorites to book a place from South America into the 2026 United World Cup. So yeah, that's all I have to say, man. You know, any closing thoughts on Scaloni?
He's
any chance he gets sacked?
Only if Argentina does not qualify for the World Cup. Which would make a disaster.
That won't happen, bro.
Yeah. First Copa America title in my lifetime. Because, fun fact, 1993, the last time they won it, that was a few weeks before I was born. It was like 3 weeks or so before I was born. So first major tournament trophy, I believe, in 28 years. And then they win the Finalissima, and then they win the World Cup, 3 titles in the span of a year and a half. He's one of 21 individuals in human history, to be a World Cup winning manager. The guy's like 47 years old. And
44.
He's 44. That's ridiculous. And if you look at his resume before he became manager, this guy wasn't like a Del Bosque or a Marcello Lippi or anything. He who had Champions League titles with clubs before winning the World Cup.
The man had nothing, bro. Nothing.
He had nothing. He was assistant manager of Sevilla, I remember. There you go. You have it pulled up right there. Argentina under 20. This guy was a dude off the street, basically.
I remember when he was appointed, I was like, Lionel Scaho? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? But look, he's a World Cup winner, man. But look, man, we're gonna keep it moving to
Lionels it took to win the World Cup.
I know. I think that was a secret recipe, man. So look, Poland. This one is a weird one. Czesław Michnovic, he took charge for only a short, brief moment. I think he was very pragmatic in his approach, very tame, I should say. Mm-hmm. And it was his ultimate downfall. They didn't do too bad, but he, come on, man. It's, he had a lot on his plate and a lot of pressure. So I wasn't even expecting him to get the job as a Poland manager. And when he did, obviously you have to kind of, baby step your way and treat it very delicate instead of just saying, okay, guys, go out there and just play some expansive football. It's like if you do that and you fail, they're going to be like, oh, what are you doing? You're too attacking. But if you're too defensive and you fail, it's going to be like, nah, this is ugly. It's not attractive enough. You know what I mean?
Poland's case is very interesting because I remember seeing, even after the fact, that when they advanced out of the group stages, fans were still pissed about the way that the team was playing. And they were saying how Michnovic was following a trend of how a lot of Polish managers in the Ekstraklasa, the domestic league, tends to follow. They play a very scared, conservative style of football, very insipid, not very inspiring. But it got the job done. And in a group where Mexico faltered and Saudi Arabia just teased us, it was enough to come through, and you can excuse them because they lost to France in the round of 16. So you could understand based on results, success for them.
Success is a success, man. You know what I mean?
Maybe not in a romantic sense, like an ideal way, but I mean, that was the first time Poland got out of the group stages in 40 years.
But to me, that's how I remember Poland playing all the time. Lewandowski being starved of service, and whenever they do eventually get him involved, they look good. And he's like the only danger man they have. Mm-hmm. For them to get out the group, they should have kept this man. You see what I'm saying? Mm. He looked very keen. It looked like a proud moment for him. You know what I'm saying? Being finally rewarded for, for his managerial work over the years, and then bam, no longer the manager.
So
only to appoint a similar style manager in Fernando.
I will say, I'm optimistic for Poland under Santos, because he has a style that might suit them. It's because it's hard to see how they get any more pragmatic than they already were, right? So if they're trying to continue in that sort of groove but just switch things up a bit, I think he might have something to offer here for Poland. And I would be interested to see how he manages the whole question of how he gets this team to sort of adapt and move on from relying on Lewandowski so much, because Lewandowski is not going to be around forever. He's already in his 30s.
But right? The thing is, this is what's weird, right? It's like going from having a wealth of talent and players available, like a selection headache. Like, oh man, there's so many talented players, man. Like you have Bruno Fernandes, you have Jota, you have Bernardo Silva, you have Mateus Nunes. You have so many players, right? You have so many players to choose from. Leao, Felix, Andre Silva. You name them, right?
Mm-hmm.
To having just a small pool, where the talent pool is like, it's like a pond, right? It's like you have a pond of talent to choose from. While for Portugal, it's like an ocean. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. It could be less of a headache for him, less of us. And I forgot to mention Ronaldo and Gonzalo Ramos. So I guess it's a simpler task, but I don't know. It's a weird appointment to me, because I think after the whole Portuguese thing, Fernando Santos should just retire. I know it's harsh, but he's 68 years old. Retire, man. You know what I'm saying? Or stay in Portugal, where you could manage maybe a local club and stay with. I don't know, man.
What I will say is, even though I am interested to see how this can work out, and I am rooting for the guy and I'm rooting for Poland, I do agree with the overall idea that it's kind of weird to see like these managers just being recycled and moving around, and you think to yourself, Europe is like the cream of the crop as far as standards for, managerial excellence. Like they couldn't find someone like more promising, I guess, someone new, like a fresh face that has proven themselves maybe at a club level. So, it's boring in that regard, but
exactly. And I think Michnovic actually offered that, and then he got sacked. So, look, let's see what Fernando Santos does after, winning the Euro 16 with Portugal. And, wait, did they win a Nations League as well, right?
They did, yeah.
The first one.
He won 2 titles with them. Yeah, it was Portugal's first ever major trophy, the Euros, and then they won the first Nations League. So, yeah, I mean, he's always going to go down in the history books, of course, for Portugal.
Yeah, he was under a lot of pressure, though. You know what I'm saying? So, look, man, Mexico, Tata Martino from 2019 to 2022. That was a very disastrous spell, I have to say, and largely unsuccessful managerial tenure, in my opinion. Very unsuccessful, in my opinion. Because, look, Mexico, they expected to qualify for the World Cup in CONCACAF, but they lost. The Gold Cup, 2019 Gold Cup. Who won the 2019 Gold Cup? Was it Mexico?
It was Mexico.
Okay, but Mexico. Was Tata Martino the manager then?
In 2019, yes, he was.
For the Gold Cup, for that Gold Cup.
Yes.
Okay, but after that Gold Cup, that's right. So the way he lost the Nations League final and then not winning the Gold Cup that same year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then going to the World Cup and becoming the first Mexican manager in ages not to get out of the group. So pretty poor, man. I don't think he ever got his selection right. It's like he never got his backline right. It was always chopping and changing the backline. He brought some players into the squad who never deserved to be in the squad. Guys like Funes Mori, in my opinion. Some players were frozen out. Some players find it, I think the decision not to take Lioness to the World Cup was kind of perplexing to me.
Disastrous.
You know what I'm saying?
Fucking disastrous.
Yeah, Luis Chavez was a bright spot. You know what I'm saying? But apart from that, it was just, let's say the first couple years of his tenure was pretty good. But then after that, it just, it took a nosedive.
When I assess Tata Martino's time in Mexico, I see a lot of parallels with Felix Sanchez Boss with Qatar. I think that it started off really well, not just in domestically with CONCACAF competitions, but Mexico. I remember in a lot of friendlies they were playing in 2018 and 2019, they looked good against non-CONCACAF opposition. And then ever since we beat them twice in the same summer in the Nations League and the Gold Cup, they just looked horrible, and they didn't adequately prepare for the World Cup. I think Tata Martino, like you said, he didn't really take any true striker with him to the World Cup. I remember when they released the roster before the World Cup started, I noticed Lainez when it was not there, and I was like, what is this? And the way that he set them up in their matches against Argentina and Poland, up front, no true striker. Mexico were starved going forward of any real creativity, and
with Chucky Lozano too, with his injury as well, that hurt Mexico. Look,
yeah, and I feel like Tata Martino. I just want to say lastly, it goes beyond the management, because Mexican football the last couple of years has been in a real funk. If you've noticed lately, they're struggling at the youth level. They missed out on the Olympics. They missed out on the last under-20 World Cup. There's a lot of issues right now in their federation. They've always had issues, but it's a systemic thing. I think sometimes stuff like this seeps into the national team for a country, and the manager is limited by what they can do. But I do agree. I think that Tata Martino could have done enough to at least get them out of the first round again. And now he's going to go down with the record of breaking the streak they had. So.
Yep. So Mexico have appointed an Argentinian manager by the name of Diego Cocca, and he obviously is a manager I'm not familiar with, but if you check his CV, he was managing in the Liga MX, because so they actually appointed him from within the league, where he was in charge of Atlas for a while, and then took charge of Tigres briefly. He's been in Mexico for a while too, with Tijuana, but he's basically been a club manager most of his career. As you guys could Santos Laguna back in 2011, Huracán, defense, Argentina, Colombia with Millonarios. So he's been around the club scene, but not really the international scene, and as a player, locally as well, he was playing in the Mexican League. So he knows, and when you look at an appointment like this, it could be a very good appointment, because he knows the country, he knows the territory, he knows the players. You see what I'm saying? He's been there. So he played in the league, he managed in the league, and now he's going to manage the national team. So I think personally, this is the type of manager that's very exciting. That's what you were actually talking about, from not recycling, for example, going for, let's say, for example, Mexico went for Gustavo Alfaro. That would have been the better appointment. You see what I'm saying? That would have been the safer appointment, but this is the more exciting appointment, because it's it brings that element of surprise now.
Sure.
You see, fans will be like, okay, let's see what we expect from this guy. He has not been proven on the international level, but you're not going to look now. So the expectations are not that high. So it gives him room now to experiment and fail a little, and then you see. But if you bring in a Gustavo Alfaro, the expectations will be like, this guy took Ecuador to the World Cup. Wow, look at what we got. And they're going to, and big things are expected right out the gate. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I never heard of this man up until just a few days ago. Never heard of him. But, they picked someone who's had success in the Liga MX.
Me too, bro. Me too.
And, I heard that Atlas won a couple of years ago. I did hear back when it happened that Atlas won.
Okay, so what we're going to do, right? Just look at his honors right here. If you check his honors,
he won the
Atlas. Yeah, he won the champion of champions. He won the Apertura with and that's the league with Atlas as well. He won the Clausura. I think I'm not too familiar with the Mexican setup, but I think there's a Clausura and the Apertura, so I'm not too familiar. And he won the Argentinian Cup with Racing as well. So he's won a few things.
And it kind of reminds me a little bit of, Mexico looking at the local level managers who've had success in the domestic league, similar to remember Miguel Herrera when he was in charge.
Yep.
He had success with Club America before he came in and took Mexico to a successful World Cup in 2014. So, Argentina, they produce managers like
I know.
Every manager in the world is Argentine.
Yep.
Says a lot about the country's quality. But
so he's appointed until the 2026 World Cup, it seems. So he's been given the job to, get Mexico ready and prepared for a World Cup that they've already qualified for, and the tournaments from now until then, like the CONCACAF Nations League, a couple Gold Cups, you know what I'm saying? The international friendlies, and put together a quality team that could actually compete and maybe get past that 5th match at the World Cup. So all the best.
Yep.
I like the appointment. So
we'll see. I'm wishing Mexico the best because they're going to be hosting too. They don't want to be embarrassed either.
Yeah, definitely. So the last of Group C, Saudi Arabia, Hervé Renard, still in charge 2019, presently in charge, and he has a cap in his a feather in his cap there for beating Argentina at the World Cup there. And he actually, I think, steadied Saudi Arabia and qualified them to that World Cup, because I didn't even pick Saudi Arabia to qualify. But then when I saw that Hervé Renard was in charge, I was like, oh man, I messed up with that prediction though, because I think he was appointed like very sneakily in a way. Like the appointment came and I'm like, whoa, I didn't even realize that. But Hervé Renard, he is what I call an international manager extraordinaire. You see what I'm saying? Yep. He tried his hand at club football. It didn't work. But when it comes to international football, man, especially on the African continent, now the Middle East, he's just a whiz, man. See what I'm saying? So it's a good appointment, and it's a good man to have in charge, to try to get Saudi Arabia back at the World Cup. I don't know if they're going to keep him if he doesn't do well at the Asian Cup or the early stages of qualifiers, but still,
To be honest, this might be a little bit harsh, but if they had sacked him after this last World Cup, I would have been okay with it, just because after that monumental
position that they were in, they should have made it to the second round.
They couldn't get a single point after that. Like if they had beaten Argentina, which was huge, the first major upset of the World Cup, by the way, that was like on day 2 or day 3.
Yeah,
I remember. And if they had done that, maybe tied Poland, lost to a desperate Mexico, but they just
but the thing too, right? The thing too, right, Pharaoh, you got to remember that Saudi Arabia had their full squad against Argentina. Salman Al-Faraj, Yasser Al-Sharani, both players got injured in that game, right?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
That's a captain and a premier fullback, and these guys are experienced. And when you took those, I remember Nawaf Al-Abed, I think, got injured as Fahad Al-Muallad had got injured, I think. So if I'm not mistaken, another, I think Fahad Al-Muallad got injured. Nawaf Al-Abed was heavily involved, a player that, I expected to be involved back in 2018, and he wasn't. But I could recall that Fahad Al-Muallad had got injured. You see? So, you can't really blame Saudi Arabia too much, because the pool, the talent pool is not as huge. You see what I'm saying?
True. I mean, after all, they did beat Argentina with an exclusively Saudi Pro League squad. The entire squad they took to this World Cup was from the Saudi Pro League.
That's where most of the players play, anyways.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
I'm saying that's impressive.
Yeah,
we beat Argentina, the eventual champions, with all. If we played in the World Cup and we beat, I don't know, Germany, who went on to win the World Cup with an all MLS team, I would lose sleep. I would be so happy with that. Like, So yeah, I mean, I can understand either way. Them keeping him, them getting rid of him. Maybe he can cap it off with an Asian Cup title this coming next year. Because Saudi Arabia, they're always competitors in Asia. They always are. So
yeah, I actually think, just to correct myself, I think Fahad Al-Muallad got injured before the tournament too. You know what I mean? I think he didn't even make the tournament. So that was like a setback for Saudi Arabia as well. And they did pretty good, man. But the injuries to Al Faraj and Al Sharani, I think that's what really, really hurt the team. That is what hurt the team. So they in the hands of a good manager, in my opinion.
He is a good manager. Yeah, he's a good manager.
So just to wrap up today's episode, this always happens to us, bro. It always happens. We have a plan to do the whole thing, and then we just get into this deep dive, and then bam. So Group D, where we have France, Australia, Tunisia, and Denmark. And what's fascinating about this group is that they still have all their managers intact.
Wow. Yeah, you're
right. So this one shouldn't take a very, very long time. And France, Didier Deschamps, been in charge from 2012 until now. So, and he should be in charge until the next World Cup as well. So let's give Deschamps his flowers, man. I know he gets heavily criticized, but the man took France to two World Cup finals, back-to-back finals.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So any criticisms of Deschamps? And what you got to say?
I still think Deschamps, remember, like you and I were saying, as late as last year, sometimes he himself as a manager can be a little bit too rigid and pragmatic in his ways, but he happens to be a coach that has man per man maybe the most talented, like raw talented national side in the world.
Yeah.
And when you're missing a couple of players in your team, when you can afford to not take Pogba and Karim Benzema to World Cup, and
Conte as well,
and still come a penalty come penalties away from winning the World Cup back to back. I mean, yeah, Deschamps has earned staying on. I personally, even when a manager does well, if they've been around for so long, and he's been there almost 10 years now, Deschamps has been, I like to see a changing of the guard, because it's a nice gesture to move on to the next leadership.
Zidane.
So,
Zidane would be exciting, though.
Oh, hell yeah. I would love to watch France under Zidane. Like, Deschamps has already proved it all. Maybe he still feels a bit, got a chip on his shoulder. He wants to win a European championship. He hasn't done it the last two times with but I mean, I don't begrudge France for keeping him, but I would like to see a change. I mean,
but the thing too, right? If things are going well, and the person in charge is still, practicing, why change? You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
Look, a Nations League, a World Cup, a final,
a Euro final.
Exactly, a Euro final in 2016. This is success.
Here's the thing. I would push back on that and say, when Germany had Jogi Löw for a long time, they had a lot of success too, and then it eventually soured.
No, but the thing is, right, when it does get sour is when you do start looking to move on. You see what I'm saying? But if you have a business, right, and the business is turning over profits, are you going to change? Are you going to sack the manager? Are you going to look to put someone else in charge when your business is doing well? You see what I'm saying?
Usually you keep the same person.
Exactly. So this goes for that. This goes for that. You see what I mean?
It's tricky, because when you have a manager that stays on and they've had success, they've been there for so long, you can kind of see it both ways. Where, I mean, I'm pretty neutral on it. I think you should.
What should happen is, right, Okay, let's say Deschamps is going to stay on until the next cycle, right? The next Euro, Nations Leagues, and the next World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say France does well at the World Cup. Okay, Deschamps, you leave. So France now transition well. Start thinking about the next man. Don't wait until things start getting bad, like Germany getting knocked out in the group stage, and keep him on, and then embarrassing yourselves against, some of these lower minnows in Europe. And that is when you change. You change on a high. You
Mm-hmm.
see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, for example, like the USA, Berhalter could say, "Okay, I left on a high." Even
Sure.
though it's controversial, some things happen. He left on a high. He got USA to the World Cup, into the second round. Okay, I'm gone. You see what I mean? He didn't leave by, let's say, losing the Gold Cup final, losing to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in a friendly. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, what I mean, if it ain't broke, man, why fix it now? And Deschamps is not like super old. Like, he's 54 years old. You see
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah, very
So
young.
as a matter of fact, Deschamps could stay on for the next 10 years if he wants to.
I was just going to say he could be like an Oscar Tabarez kind of like,
Exactly, man.
for
Exactly.
France. And yeah, I mean, because of because of who France has in their team, how just stacked they are all around. They can field a B team and go deep in tournaments. Um, he's going to have another generation upcoming at his disposal to use for World Cups and European Championships. And I'm going to go on the record and say right now, I think France will make another World Cup final at least one more time in the next 2 or 3 World Cups.
Yep.
That's an early prediction. 2026,
Bro.
2030, 2034, they'll reach the final of one of them.
Bro, Kylian Mbappe is not. Is Kylian Mbappe 25? Is he about 25?
23.
Exactly.
23.
You see what I'm saying? Like, come on. Like,
he's still closer to being a teenager than he is to being 30.
I'm telling you, man. So look, France, they okay, man. They okay, man. So with that being said, we gonna move. Australia, Graham Arnold. I thought he would have he was one of the guys that looked like he was coming to an end of his tenure, but he pulled a rabbit out the hat, and Australia made it to the second round, coming out of this very, very, very tough group with Tunisia and Denmark. So it means that Arnold is still in charge from the last time I checked.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in charge from 2018, took over from Bert van Markwijk, and he's still in charge to take Australia forward. So it means that what he did was successful. His selection with guys like Harry Souttar, now playing for Leicester City. I've seen Harry Souttar playing for Leicester, and he looks pretty assured, and bringing through some very young players as well, along with some of the older guys, that's been there, so pretty successful tenure for Graham Arnold. Australia love to do things the hard way. Went through another playoffs, and bam.
Yep.
Pretty successful World Cup, if you ask me. And they could, if luck was on their side, they could have knocked out Argentina.
For sure, yeah. For Australia, I think it looked like it was another day at the office when they remember that first match against France. They just got destroyed, and I was like, "Oh, they're gonna head for another group stage."
Well, they started well. They scored the first goal.
They started well, but the way they rallied after losing that match, and they picked up 2 wins over the Danes and Tunisia. This is a man who, going back to the last Asian Cup, I remember some Aussie fans on social media. They've been roasting this guy, Graham Arnold, under so much heat, so much criticism. And he came through, and I think this is sort of like I thought this World Cup was sort of like a redemption story for Graham Arnold, in a way. And I think that of the all 4 managers in this group that we're about to cover, he's the one who had his shit together the most, I think, other than, of course, Deschamps. And I think he's deserved to stay on for sure. I mean, you have an Asian Cup coming up. We can see what Australia can do. So there's not much else to comment on because they kept the same manager. So
you know what I wanted to add, on Australia when it comes to Graham Arnold, he's just the right man to lead the Australia, man, because he's been around for a while, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
If you look, as a player, he played in Australia, and you look at his managerial career, assistant manager, right? For 6 years there. He was there, and caretaker manager after the World Cup. He was there for that very successful World Cup they had 2006. Remember that World Cup
Yep.
with all the stars, Bresciano, Viduka, Q, Cahill, Schwarzer, all the names. He was there, right? And he caretaker after, assistant manager again, managed in Australia, for a couple of years there, as you saw, and then youth level, and then took charge of the senior team. And he's expected to stay on, until the next World Cup, where Asia has more, spots available. So it might be an easier road this time around.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So very good choice. Who else? That is a question I'm gonna ask any Aussie fans. Who else? You're gonna recycle one of these managers that got sacked? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So you know what I'm thinking, bro? E to H. Oh man, that's gonna be juicy. E to H is gonna be juicy. You think A to D is juicy? E to H is gonna be juicy. And just for a quick, preview, we're gonna be talking Japan, Spain, Germany, Costa Rica, Morocco, Croatia, Belgium. Belgium got Canada. There's some, skepticism there. We're gonna talk Brazil, Switzerland, Cameroon, Serbia, Portugal. They got a new manager, and we're gonna talk about that one big time. South Korea, Uruguay, and Ghana.
Mhm.
So Tunisia, Jalal Kadri, he's still in charge. He took over from Monday Kabaya, and he was actually the assistant to Monday Kabaya from the last time I checked. And I'm always like, there's always something fishy when the assistant takes over from the previous manager, right? And I always like to think that these assistant manager who goes on to become manager has something to do with the previous manager getting sacked.
Yeah,
You know
it's kind of like the lazy solution to like a federation that doesn't want to do like an extensive search for like a good manager. It's like, okay, now's your time.
Prove yourself. You told us that you could do a better job than Kabaya. You told us that you suggested this and you suggested that, and he ignored your suggestions, and that's why we lost. So take the job.
Yeah.
But it's fair to say that Tunisia, they looked a lot better under Jalal Kadri, especially at the last AFCON where he took over, and they qualified for a World Cup again where they didn't look like they were going to qualify, and that's the thing with Tunisia. They never look convincing, and then they always somehow make the cut. But then they go to the World Cup, and then they're like, okay, they fail to to entertain, for lack of a better word, but they always there and about. So for Jalal Kadri, to me, he's just been doing what previous managers have done.
Yeah, and the thing with like Kadri is I don't see anything that really distinguishes him from previous like Tunisian managers. And if that's something that you're comfortable with, more power to you. But I mean, I wouldn't have throw my arms up in the air if he were to get sacked. He just doesn't seem like an exceptional choice. He just seems like somebody that Tunisia went to because this is something that
Yeah, and I think some of his decision making at the World Cup was quite suspect with the whole Wabi Kazri selection, the decisions. I am not 100% sure if Kadri was fit for those previous games, for the earlier matches. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But then when Kadri was actually, started to get more involved, you could see Tunisia was actually playing better. You see what I'm saying? Because they beat France. Tunisia beat France. And the game that they were supposed to actually win, they didn't. You see what I mean? So
yeah. Really, what made or break Tunisia's campaign was that match against Australia, because I thought for most of that game they were the better side. They were just really lacking, really lacking. I thought up front, and they did not capitalize on the fact, I think, that Denmark faltered in this group, and it's just same old, because Tunisia now this is like their 6th World Cup. I think they've never got past the group stages. It's just you kind of expect them now to be group stage fodder at this point. Not getting bullied around. They always put in decent performances. They get points.
Remember that first game, Tunisia was better than Denmark. Remember they bossed that game.
You could make a case that they were the better team.
What's that player name again? Laidouni.
I said Laidouni.
Yeah, exactly. He bossed that game. Msakni, all these guys had a great, first game, and then Msakni disappeared after that. Laidouni disappeared. These guys just disappeared. They went ghost.
Yeah, and
you see,
they were actually the best team in all 3 of their games, if you think about it, the way they played. So, I mean, how do you feel about that? Would you like to see a change, or you're okay with Kadri? I'd like to see a change. Honestly.
It doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter. Tunisia would just be Tunisia. They have a blueprint. They're a sleeper team. They probably make the next World Cup, or the next World Cup and the next one. Unconvincingly as well.
They usually, hey, you give them credit, they usually do make the World Cup. In the last 20, 30 years, they usually do make it.
Not many people are going to predict Tunisia to make tournaments, but they do. But, I think it's fitting that we finish things off today in episode 30, and we will do episode 31. We have to come back next week, bro. We got to do this next week.
For sure.
Denmark, bro. Kasper Hjulmand, it was a failure. And a lot of us thought that Denmark were actually we're going to be a tournament favorite, a dark horse.
Yeah.
Where they could have even made it really. I think I had Denmark making the final, if I'm not mistaken.
You have them making the semis. I had them making the final.
Yeah. Something. Yeah, I had them getting very far.
Yeah, but I had them losing the final.
Oh man, these guys flop. Oh, whoa! I didn't notice. I just wait. Is this old? Oh, this is old. Yeah, I just saw a piece of thing here. I was like, this is. I thought this was fresh. Because I'm like, when I checked, he was still in charge of Denmark. This is old. This is from 2014. I was like, I was about to lose it.
Yeah.
You see? Yeah. He's still in charge of Denmark, though. But I have to say, when he took over from Åge Hareide, who had a great, stint in charge of Denmark, the transition, and this is what we were actually talking about previously with the whole Deschamps situation, right? We were talking about, okay, we want to see something fresh. Åge Hareide had no reason to leave Denmark. He was doing really well, and they had an unbeaten streak for years. Remember that? Remember Denmark didn't lose a game since about 27, some ridiculous stat they had, right?
Yeah, they'd lost like one match in like 4 or 5 years, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. But they didn't wait until they started failing or anything, or they didn't have any players available. They actually said, okay, Hareide, he came to the end of his stint, bring on Kasper Hjulmand.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? I think he started very, very well. He's already managed 36 games.
Yep.
And then he came into the tournament. I think they came into the tournament very good with the whole Euro 2020 situation where they made it to the semis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people didn't expect that after the Christian Eriksen situation, and Casper Hillman deserved a lot of credit. They qualified to the World Cup as well. They were quite impressive, and then they completely flopped, like flopped.
Yeah, and coming in the way that he did when he took over from Harita, going as far as they did in the Euros, and then they swept qualifiers in the World Cup. They were one of the first teams in the world to
exactly.
qualify. They won 9 out of 10.
They hadn't even conceded a goal, I think, up until the last game, maybe one or late, very, very late in the tournament.
And they didn't lose a single match until they were already qualified. They lost like a dead rubber against Scotland, I think it was.
Exactly.
And then in the Nations League, they didn't show the thing with Denmark is like sometimes in a year of a World Cup, you can kind of see a team showing warning signs that they're going to have a bad tournament. But in the Nations League, they beat France twice. Remember that? They were in the same Nations League group in September.
It's right there. Look, it's right there.
They beat France twice in September, which, by the way, the Nations League might be the quiet hero that ended the World Cup winners' curse because I think it woke France up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because France, they barely avoided relegation in the Nations League. But anyway, for Denmark, there was no indicator at all they were going to. Maybe even if you didn't think they were going to go far, there was no indication that they were going to flop.
None, bro. None.
And what happened? I think that's still a matter of debate, like to dissect and everything. They just
shocking,
very shocking. Danish.
I'm gonna just hit you with some ad libs right now.
Well, like you said, the
disastrous.
Danish disappointment, Danish disaster. You called the dynamite the dud, right?
Yep.
Danish dynamite dud or something. But do I? So as far as the managerial thing, were they correct in keeping him? I think it's too early to like. I'm okay with him staying on actually because I think one bad tournament. It's too early to really determine what exactly went on. I think that he kind of has done enough, Casper Hillman, to deserve another cycle, maybe a Euros, see how they do in qualifiers, which starts next month, see how they do at the competition proper if they qualify. I wouldn't sack him now. How about you?
I'm 50-50. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm 50-50, but Denmark are not the federation, they're not like that. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They're not impulsive. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as if expectations were exceeded at the Euros under Hillman, and he has to be rewarded for that. You can't someone can't do well for you, taking you to the semis, make the nation proud, a very small nation at that, and qualify you for the World Cup, and then just because you don't do well at the World Cup, get sacked. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and if it was another nation like a France or Spain, Italy, England, Portugal, you're gonna get sacked. Belgium, you're gonna get the sack. You see, but this is Denmark. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
This is Denmark, and I think what are you gonna do? Sack him and put who in charge? You see what I mean? And then don't get, and then the results doesn't change. So he now has to be like, okay, wow, that's a wake up call. We made some mistakes. One thing we got to do is we got to find a reliable striker because that's where they lacked, big time. When they lost Delaney. Remember when they lost Delaney? What happened? So they crumbled, man. They crumbled, and they couldn't get it. They just couldn't score to save their lives.
There's even some conspiracy theories out there that because the whole controversy with Denmark wearing the faded jerseys heading into Qatar to protest like the workers' conditions. There are some people who think that maybe they purposely had an early exit so they could just like get out of there as quickly as possible. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Nah, you can't do that, bro.
Yeah.
As much as you might not want to be a part of something, you don't just willfully like fail. It's just hard.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's just hard, man.
Yeah, exactly. I don't buy it either. Something went wrong. I think that still has to be assessed in the autopsy report.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess
Post-mortem.
the post-mortem. I'm fine with him staying for now, just as long as they don't let it get out of hand, and then they do what Germany did with Yogi Low. I'm sorry, I keep messing with Yogi in this stream.
That's a great example, bro. You know what I mean? You got to use them as examples, man.
Bro, after the World Cup in 2018, Yogi Low stayed on for 2 Nations Leagues and a Euros. It took them four bad performances in tournaments for him to get the boot. Don't do Denmark.
And as an aftermath of that, Germany failed at the World Cup that came. You know, so
sure. Yeah.
You know,
and your talk about assistant managers, Germany for the last 20 years has had like an inheritance with the managerial post. What I mean by that is managers being replaced by the assistant managers they had. You had Klinsmann, and then Yogi Low was assistant. He took over after Klinsmann. Then Hansi Flick took over after Yogi Low was sacked. It's kind of like keeping the same face, isn't it? Though,
and it's the same philosophy as well. Same blueprint.
Yeah,
same blueprint, man. It's like
20 years.
It's like why you think you know, not to go over to club, but why do you think Manchester City keeps beating Arsenal year after year? Is because Mikel Arteta worked on the Pep. Pep taught this guy. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So Pep knows how he thinks. Mikel Arteta does not know how Pep thinks. Pep didn't show his hand, everything he has in his head to Arteta, but he taught Arteta. So now he knows how to beat him. So with the managerial inheritance now, you work with a manager for years, you're basically a baby version of that manager. Even if you try to, you know, go as far as you can from that previous manager's philosophy and their way of thinking, you always come back when the going gets tough, because that's what you know. That's what you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
You know, so yeah. But guys, it's been a long one. I really enjoyed this, an hour and a half. I really, really enjoyed it. And you know, I'm looking forward to go from E to H. Gonna be another fun discussion. And what we have, since we're talking managers, we should get to talking some more international changes as well. You see what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
We should do that, and we gotta get it going. You know what I mean? We've had a long break. January, February have not put out enough content, so we gotta get it going, because guess what? The international break is coming up pretty soon, and we want to get busy. You see what I'm saying? Because truly, really and truly, I'm more enjoying this international thing right now, because the whole scene isn't as congested and, you know, watered down as the club scene. You see what I'm saying? So it's refreshing for me. I enjoy it more. You see? And the fans, the international fans, are not as fickle as the club fans. So, yeah. So it's more enjoyable to do. And you see what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Yep. So
I'm going to take it away.
Definitely. Guys, there you have it. Episode 30, World Cup Digest with your boy Dominic Rich, without money, with no money. And, you know, Football Pharaoh coming back with another one, man. Definitely subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to Football Pharaoh's channel as well. A link will be in the description box down below. Football Pharaoh, what you got to say to the people?
He says he's not rich, but the only gold you need is the golden heart. Just remember that.
Exactly.
So thank you for having me on. We hit 30. This is part 1 of the subject of this video. We'll be back next week for episode 31, covering part 2, groups E through H, managerial situation for all these World Cup national teams. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Football Pharaoh. Link in the description box below. You can also find me on Twitter, Football Pharaoh, at Soccer Pharaoh. That's at soccer_Pharaoh. I want to thank Dominic for having me on yet again, and I hope that we continue to keep this engine going and for the foreseeable future and long term as well.
Bro,
So
we should be gray. We should have gray hair doing this series still because it's World Cup Digest. The World Cup would keep going, man. And look, guys, this video will live on both channels. So the link for my channel will be in the description of Football Pharaoh's video and vice versa. So you know how we do it, man. You know how we do it. You know what I mean? St. Vincent and Egypt linking up with both Americans. So,
yep.
We just enjoy this international football thing, man. I think we're the only ones doing international football right now. Maybe there's some other channels talking it, international football, but they don't do it the way we do it, man. So
no, we're pros at what we do, and we've got to make sure we keep it that way. There's always going to be people out there that eat this stuff up. And we know you guys love this content. We love it just as much as you do. So, yeah, here's hoping we continue to keep seeing you. So, until next time, take care. Much love. Peace out.